Good morning, dear friends. Reflecting on today's first reading, the words of the French-American Quaker missionary. His words makes meaning to me. His name is Stephen Grillet, and these are his words. I shall pass through this world but once. Any good, therefore, that I can do, or any kindness that I can show to any human being, let me not defer it nor neglect it, for I shall not pass this way again. I repeat, I shall pass through this world but once. Any good, therefore, that I can do, or any kindness that I can show to any human being, let me not defer it nor neglect it, for I shall not pass this way again. Just think about these words as you begin your day. And as you reflect on these words, or those words, there are 3 lessons I would love to share with you this morning from today's first reading. 1. Live as witnesses of the resurrection. 2. God can use anyone for his glory. 3. God's grace empowers our efforts. God's grace empowers our efforts. Paul in the first reading is challenging you. Paul in the first reading is challenging me. Paul in the first reading is challenging us to live as witnesses of the resurrection. And that implies that we check how we live with people wherever we find ourselves. Husbands, check the way you live with your wives. Wives, check the way you live with your husbands. Parents, check the way you live with your children. And children, check the way you treat your parents. Priests are to check the way they deal with their parishioners. And the same applies to parishioners as well. Bosses, check the way you deal with your workers. And workers, respect your bosses. The point is very clear. Check how you live with people. You know, religion has to do with a vertical relationship and a horizontal relationship with our fellow human being. A vertical relationship with God and a horizontal relationship with our fellow human being. If we say we love God, it must reflect in the way we live with other people. And I think the first reading of the gospel gives us a clue on how to live with others, and it's simply this: do not use people's past against them. Do not use the mistakes they have made in the past against them. God, I believe, did not use Paul's past against him. He chose him to be his apostle. He chose him for his work. Simon, let us not be judgmental. Simon the Pharisee judged the woman in today's gospel reading based on her past. This warns us against judging others as we cannot fully understand their journey with God. Instead, we are called to show compassion. We are called to show kindness. Check how you work with people. Check how you speak to people. And above all, how you share your faith with others. 2, God can use anyone for his glory. It doesn't matter the amount of money you have in your account, whether you are rich or poor, whether you are young or old, whether you belong to the MPP or NDC. It doesn't matter. What matters is your availability. Paul humbly acknowledges his unworthiness because of his past persecution of the church, but highlights how grace transformed him. This shows that no matter our past, God's grace can work in and through us for his own glory. We should never underestimate the power of grace to change lives. If God used Paul, it means he can use anyone who avails himself. What matters, I said, is your availability. If God used Paul, it is clear that he can use you too. As you read, Paul was trying to emphasize the fact that he is who he is by the grace of God. So wherever you find ourselves, we should also acknowledge that we are who we are by the grace of God. 3, God's grace empowers our efforts. Paul states that he worked harder than the other apostles, but it was not him. It was the grace of God working through him. Nyamena domaraka ene bi asune so. Adan Hamilton will say, Adom, Adom, Wadom. Grace, grace. It is your grace. This reminds us that our efforts in serving God are enabled by his grace. We should rely on God's strength rather than our own strength as we serve him. Let us always do our best and leave the rest in God's hands, while making the effort to live as witnesses of the resurrection wherever we find ourselves, knowing that God can use anyone for his own glory. May he bless and keep us all. Amen.